You get to skip all that stuff if you use Missive. And if that's happening 5 times a day, 10 times a day, you start to think, okay, whatever I'm paying for Missive is probably worth it because I'm not having to do this weird dance with an archaic piece of technology like email. Senders is working with B2B companies on helping them scale their cold email outbound. So currently Senders is around 15 people. We're fully remote and we've been remote since day one. There are always those SaaS products, I'm not going to name any names, that every time they come up for renewal, whether on a monthly basis, you kind of like, do we really need this? Is this really worth it? I've never once been like, do we really need Missive? Can we get rid of Missive finally? That's never, ever crossed my mind. One thing that I don't do ever, I never, ever, ever personally log into Gmail and do anything directly in Gmail ever. I only do everything in Missive on my phone, on my computer, everywhere. To me, email is Missive, and I never use any other interface for it. And I'm saying never, I mean like never, ever, under any circumstances will I use any email, because I can't do any of the things that I need to do with email. I just can't do them without Missive anymore. Email is sort of dead to me in a way, and like the functionality that Missive has is email for me. And because of that, I think that, and I'm not sort of super unique, but I think a lot of people will move that direction if they start to see that added functionality actually is really additive. Having the ability to draft emails, share drafts, tag people on the team, remove tags on the team, automate looping people in without CC. All these things become very, very streamlined and very easy to do. The other thing that oftentimes happens is when you're talking about a client or talking about a specific communication from a client, whether it be in Slack or someone else, the natural thing to do is, oh, tag me on Missive. Oh, this email you're talking about. Oh, I didn't see this email, but now I can see this email because right when someone's tagged on it, it automatically appears in the inbox, which basically means that it can become a source for going back in time and seeing things that happened in the past that maybe it wasn't relevant to someone until right now. It can be transferring a thread from one person to another without having to forward emails, break the thread, or do anything. You can just say, hey, I was replying, but now it's your job to reply. So you can write a tag them or a comment like, this is now your responsibility. And they can just hit reply straight in their own missive and take over the conversation totally seamlessly, which is technically impossible in a regular Google inbox or a email service provider inbox. There's no way to have a thread magically move from one sender to another without any sort of trail of like a forward or anything. So it's pretty cool that you can do that. All these things are extremely useful, and really make it the kind of thing where there are many other things that I would cut before I cut Missive from our stack, including I would cut Slack before I cut Missive from my stack. To be honest, I think that Missive in many ways is more useful than something like Slack. I think visibility controls are very, very high up on the list. All the features that have to do with visibility, whether it's automatically showing emails to certain people or tagging certain people or adding it to their list, the ability to tag people to immediately they gain visibility into the whole thread, the ability to remove people from a thread without changing email. Everything that has to do with visibility basically is critically important. Same thing with drafts. You can write a draft, then you can add people to the draft to make the draft visible to them. So that's very, very important. What makes the rule engine super useful is that it can control visibility, if that makes sense. An email existing is fine if no one sees it or the right people don't see it. What's the point? If the email is sent to the wrong place and you want the right person to see it, rules engine kicks in and can do that work automatically. I think that tools like Missive abstract away the individual person handling an email, and they turn email into something that's more of a problem to be solved. Each email is an item and the item needs to be addressed, rather than an email comes to me, Benny, and Benny needs to reply to that email, if that makes sense. And that level of abstraction of email, that it turns into something that can be passed around and sort of handled, at the end of the day really benefits the client or the prospect or whoever's on the other side. Because a case in point, if I send you an email that's just a clear cut customer support email, and you're out of office and you have rules set up to where it goes to someone else who's equally as knowledgeable about it, from my perspective, I'm not disappointed that Philippe didn't email me back. I got my issue handled. So that level of a tool that's sole job is to abstract the recipient or the replier to an email is extremely useful. And the fact that it doesn't do things with tickets and automatic replies, although I'm sure you can do automatic replies in Missive if you wanted to, it can be much more organic from the perspective of a client. In the agency world, most people have a question or a comment or a concern, and they just want it addressed. And it doesn't really matter so much the continuity of who handles it, as long as it's handled quickly and efficiently. I'll give you an example. I had a client we're onboarding right now that sent a question that was clearly for our email deliverability technicians, but maybe my name was the first name that they came up with in their brain. So I'll send it to Benny. So first pass, you go, okay, I'm a little bit annoyed. Why did he send this to me? Now I'm going to have to bring in other members of my team. But that's easily solvable in Missive. One, I could say, hey, any email like this is automatically going to tag my technical dudes, and I can make some rules and have it go forever if it's a repeat thing. The second thing is I have a choice. I can tag one or two of the team. I can tag the whole team if I want to. Hey, deliverability team, can someone on the team jump in and handle this? Or I can do it the normal way of say, hey, great question. I'm looping in these two guys on my team. One of them can help you or something like that. That's a lot of choices of ways to handle things. When, if you think about email on its own, I would really only have one choice, which would be the last choice. I'd only really be able to hit reply and have these two guys jump in, or forward it to them, totally lose visibility and say, hey guys, can you handle this? Now it looks like I'm not handling it. You understand what I mean? It's like you get to skip all that stuff if you use Missive. And if that's happening 5 times a day, 10 times a day, or 100 times a week, or 20 times a week, you start to think, okay, whatever I'm paying for Missive is probably worth it because I'm not having to do this weird dance with an archaic piece of technology like email. I have this beautiful layer on top of it. So I think that to sort of summarize, it would be anything that has to do with visibility is critically important. Rule engine supports visibility on so many levels. And then the overall ability to abstract email out in a way that becomes something that needs to be handled and responded to, but isn't dependent on whoever received that note. If you configure Missive correctly, means that it's absolutely critically important. Like there's no replacement for it. You actually helped us onboard all of our past emails that were in front into Missive, but I remember that was significant. I remember the onboarding process for Missive was extremely quick, and your customer support has always been great. You send a note, you guys respond quickly.